Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, blah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while a choir goes, savings coming at ya, savings coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
This is No BS Job Search Advice Radio, episode 1400. Let's try that again. Episode 1427. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of No BS Job Search Advice Radio, the #1 show in Apple Podcasts for job search. More episodes than any other podcast by far in the job search space. Now, what I've been doing on Sundays is replaying some of the episodes from my other show, which I recently discontinued, called Job Search Radio. They're from the early days of the show when I used to do 30-minute interviews with different guests. Today's guest is Maggie Mistal. Maggie used to be the job search expert on Martha Stewart radio on Sirius and has a nice show here. Hope you find it helpful. Hope you give it a great review in Apple Podcasts. It's about 30 minutes long, and maybe you want to listen to it in chunks. Maybe you want to listen all the way through. I'll just simply say, if you have time today, take my classes on Skillshare using the link in the show notes. If you decide to join, you'll receive 2 months of membership for free instead of just the one that the site offers. Again, use the links in the show notes for 2 months free if you decide to join. And with that, let's get going.
My guest is Maggie Mistal, who's a certified life purpose and career coach who for 7 years hosted a weekly national radio show called Making a Living with Maggie on Sirius XM. CNN has called her one of the nation's best-known career coaches. In her career consulting practice, Maggie helps people of all levels and backgrounds and walks of life to identify their ideal careers and walks them through the steps needed to make a living at what they love to do. Maggie, welcome to Job Search Radio. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Jeff. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So when I look at job hunters and how they conduct themselves, they tend to be caught up in the tactics, the details, the minutiae of the job search. And I think it's better off if they start off with a bigger picture, a strategic perspective in the search. Is that what you tend to see as well?
Absolutely. Most people come to me and say, I need a job, or I'm not happy with my job. I'm not finding what I want out there. They don't know what to do because traditionally we've been taught to look at the want ads, right? Even though technology has enabled the want ads to get to us in different ways, we're still using the same approach that our grandparents pretty much did. And what I like to tell people is, not only is that approach antiquated, but it's not necessary, right? It's not, yes, of course you want to find a job and you need to make a living, but the way to go about that isn't just to look at what's out there and shoehorn yourself into it, because for anybody who's done that, pretty much all of us, right, at some stage, it's very uncomfortable. It's very hard to find a job that's a perfect fit. So most people just throw their hands up and say, I guess work is supposed to be a chore. And I say, no, when you go about your job search differently, when you soul search first and research first before you get into the job search, it makes all the difference in terms of the types of opportunities you're able to create for yourself. You're actually able to find a much better match.
I agree with you. And the funny thing is how few people start off with that soul search, let alone the research. Like you said, they start looking at online listings, and I've been in recruiting long enough to remember when that was the Sunday New York Times, when you look for ads, or the Wall Street Journal, or if you were in IT, it was Computer World, where you would look for ads. And it's a huge mistake. As a previous guest of mine, Ellis Chase, pointed out, so often people start making compromises way too early in their job search before they've really had a clear idea of defining what their needs are, what their wants are, what would really make them happy in another position. So I get
you often don't go there, Jeff. You're right? People aren't used to soul searching as an activity, right? A lot of the clients that I work with, because I take them through soul search, research, and job search, right, I tell them, I'm like, you're not used to reflecting, right, on where you've been and where you're going. You're not used to necessarily stopping and thinking about those experiences that really did engage you and decide, distill from that what skills and interests were at play. We just don't tend to do that kind of introspection when it comes to career. We might do it in our spiritual lives or in other aspects of our relationships. When it comes to career, people think, oh, it's just about a job, it's just about making money. What I say is no, a job, a career really, even more than a job, right? Having a career is about making a contribution. It's about leveraging the compelling, actions we want to take. We all feel differently about what the world needs and, where I think the world should go and what I think needs to happen, and we all feel compelled to act on that. What's amazing is when you soul search, and you match your interests and your talents and your passions and your purpose with your work, you get to make your job what you would love to be doing anyway. And it's almost like you want to pinch yourself because you get paid to do it. And people, what I just think about myself, I wasn't always a career coach. I actually was an accountant out of school and got my CPA thinking, stable job, growing industry, always in demand. But I'll tell you, when I actually did the job, it was a complete mismatch for my personality, for my interests. And I couldn't imagine seeing myself doing that job for another 20, 30 plus years. So at that point I said, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way. I've got to have a purpose, to what I do. There's got to be more to it than just a paycheck at the end of the day, because I couldn't shop at the mall enough to make myself happy Monday through Friday, no matter, how much I got paid or how much stability I had. It was really pretty boring. And again, I'm not saying accounting is boring for everybody. There are people whose passions lie there and they're very good at it, and that's the other piece. You have to recognize that when your soul's not in it, when your heart's not in it, you're not very good at it. So just as your prior guest said, people make compromises way too early. They're also going to compromise their performance, which ultimately compromises the very job security they're going after.
And it's funny, in terms of how people carry themselves, ultimately what we want to be doing is loving our lives. Businesses, believe it or not, I'm talking to my audience, Maggie, I know you believe this, ultimately business is trying to do things that are consistent with not just making money, but accomplishing some sort of mission for their organization. And they've somehow or other people get the idea that that doesn't apply to them either, that people are just supposed to be the third widget in the fourth cube on the fifth floor of an organization performing a task. And that's not the case. It's so important to do things that you like doing. And yeah, I have a lot of shows that cover tactics, but this is the bigger picture. This is the part where every search really has to start off. And thus it brings about the question, how does someone start to figure out, if they've been so tactically oriented, how do they start to figure out what they might really love to do or enjoy doing, or what their life's mission is like?
Sure. Well, first you have to recognize that, soul searching is just as relevant and important an activity as job searching, because so many times people feel, I'm not taking action if I'm stopping to reflect, on what I'd love to do, or I'm not taking action if I'm, writing down my top strengths. They feel like, no, I have to be putting my resume in for a job. That's how you take action. And again, just like for all the reasons we've said, I'm like, well, that will be great action once you do the soul search. So one of the best questions I love to start with, when I work with people, I ask them is I say, tell me about a time when, I call them times of ecstatic engagement, when you were so lost in the activity you were doing, it was so engaging for you, you felt you were at your best and your happiest, you enjoyed what you were doing, you lost track of time. Those activities aren't always at work, especially if you haven't taken this approach to your work before. So it's okay to see other aspects of your lives, or even a high school project. I know for me, some of the key moments in my life, did come through college or high school projects, or even community activities, when I just got to be, the kind of person I wanted to be. There wasn't pressure. I wasn't trying to be under someone else's goals. I was kind of left to my own devices. It was in those moments that I realized, hey, I love being in charge. I love being my own boss. These aspects of our careers that are so important to us, we realize in those moments when we're ecstatically engaged. So I think when you recognize and can take a moment to think about, hey, those weren't just flukes, those weren't just one-off happenstances, those are clues. Those are clues to what not only my higher purpose is, but also just what I'm here to do. Honestly, I agree with you that we're here to be happy. And what makes you happy is what's going to make you your career.
We are so much in alignment on this. So I heard you talk about an individual question to ask, which was along the lines of, tell me about a time when you were so lost in something, so engaged in something that you just were loving what you do. And would you want someone to journal about that for a while? How would you want them to really start sorting through this?
Well, I think if they even just stop and think about it for a moment, and I ask my clients, write down 1 or 2 times and tell me, what you were doing, what was your, what was the activity, what was your role, and then give me the bullet points on what was engaging about it. Because the details are another piece of this, right? When you say, well, how do you soul search? You got to get into the details. So for example, when you ask somebody, well, what kind of job do you want? They'll give you the list of things like, well, I want to help others, and I want to make a difference, or I want to work with people, like-minded people. These are all kind of the blanket statements that we use, but the question is, well, exactly what do you want to help others with? And who are those others that you are here to help? And what role do you want to play? And what skills and talents do you want to put to use in that role? To get specific, right, is really what soul searching is all about. And it's fun. It's really fun for people. I tell my clients, I'm like, I'm going to split hairs with you in our coaching conversation. I'm going to help you prioritize and get really specific. Not only about those moments that you love, but also another great question, if people want to start doing some of their own soul searching, is think about who you admire, right? Think about the top 3 people you admire. And these could have been people you worked with or people you've known in your life, or could even be literary or movie characters that you just, wow, they really wowed you and they're people you wanted to be like. That can also give you another clue, because when you look at what you admire in someone, Jeff, what it's telling you is that person is expressing qualities that you have, right? You can't admire someone who doesn't possess the same qualities you have. That's how we see them, right? You wouldn't see those qualities, you wouldn't notice them if you didn't already possess them. You're just not using them. If you spot it,
you got it.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I love that. You're just not using them the way you want to be. And here's someone, who's had the courage to put that into play the way you would love to. So again, the details of, well, what specifically is that person doing that you would like to do? And what about that makes it so intriguing for you? To get to those levels of questions, really, really helps. And this can all be introspective, journaling about it. If you're the computer type, you're just sitting in front of a blank page and asking yourself some of these questions can really help. For some people, though, that's really difficult. So what I do is I have them ask others who know them well, right? And a nice sampling of people from different contexts of their lives. I'll say, okay, ask some people who know you well, what are your best skills, abilities, and talents? Ask them about what impression you make just by walking into the room. Ask them what ideas and jobs and careers you've talked to them about. And even if you ask friends and family and prior coworkers or bosses that you trusted or college friends, people from different contexts of your lives, if you ask these folks this question, what's great is you start to see the consistency, right? You've probably been talking about certain things your whole life, right? There's a core genius that we each have, and we've been expressing it. It's just that we often don't recognize it until we give it credence, until we start to put together these clues and see this larger picture has always been there. But until you notice it, it's hard to recognize.
And we often need support on recognizing those things in ourselves that others see so vividly in us. And it's unfortunate that we're often immersed in things that subdue those qualities. But asking others for input is a huge part of this process, and it's a really good suggestion. And folks, we're going to be back with more from Maggie Mistal in just a moment, but first I want to provide you with my job search insider tip for this weekend. And I did this in a LinkedIn article last week, and I just want to bring it to your attention. And in that article, I spoke about how the next recession is coming. I don't know exactly when it's coming, but I know another recession is coming. And unfortunately, so many people are in the position of just doing their jobs, just focusing in on the day-to-day tasks, and not starting to lay the foundation for what they might need if the next crisis affects them. This is a time where so many of you could be spending time looking at what Maggie is speaking about, what your passion is what your passion is, where you really thrive and excel as a human being and can bring into your work life, so that you can be proactive rather than reactive when it occurs. And again, I don't know when the recession's coming. It's just statistics tell us there's always another one on the horizon. So this is a time to really look at this kind of a strategy and start putting it into play proactively, so you have an idea in case you need to take action, what it is you need to be focused on. So let's come back to Maggie and let's continue our conversation. And this has been great. So we've done some basic soul searching, and now it's time to do some research into the next role. Is that what we're going to be researching next, or how we could bring those skills to play or those talents we have to play in the next organization?
Sure. Well, when you soul search, right, you get those details of things you like to do. What's very interesting is you often do see career possibilities come from that. Even if they aren't jobs or careers you currently have or have had, but you see, though, that there's possibilities, right, that can come from the fact that perhaps you love to do interviews, or perhaps you love to speak in front of audiences. Things that you've maybe been doing on the side that you recognize, hey, wait a minute, that could be a career, right? So possibilities come from doing the soul search. Then what you want to do for research is you want to say, okay, well, of these possibilities, which one to me seems most interesting or relevant to me right now in my career at this stage? And that's the possibility you want to start researching. And what I mean by researching is you want to gather information about it and test it out to see if it's really what you think it is, like to see if it really matches, right, those elements of your ideal career, because that's what Soul Search reveals. Soul Search gives you your checklist, right, of all the things from, the type of workplace you want to be in, the type of work you want to be doing, and the role you want to play, and the salary you want to make, right? That's your criteria. That's the Soul Search reveals. Then it's like, well, if this possibility, it could be anything. It could be even something as practical as, say, nursing, right? Let me see if this possibility is actually going to match what I want it to be, or what tweaks I would need to make to it to make it match. So some of the best.
You start doing informational interviewing. Is that where someone should go to
That's
next?
one of the easiest, right? But it's funny. I can't tell you, Jeff, how many times people are afraid to reach out for informational interviews. They want to jump to job search. I'm struggling with a client right now who says, well, this person's not going to talk to me. I just have to make sure I know I'm a perfect candidate for the job before I even reach out. I'm like, well, how are you going to know you're a perfect candidate if you don't have the information? Like, to me, it's amazing. I'm like, and why would you want to apply for a job or a company or an organization, right? If you don't know it's a fit, right? It's a two-way street, job searching, and it's just as much about you making sure they're a fit as it is about them making sure you're a fit. So informational interviewing is great, especially if there is a particular organization where you'd love to work or a particular job you think would work for you. Get beyond the daydream about it. The daydream's nice, but let's get to the real tactics, right? This is where it's great. And research is where the reality comes in. It's like, well, what's the job really like? And there are 3 or 4 key questions that I love to ask, and I do informational interviews as a matter of conversation. I mean, this is kind of how I live. So you can do this and practice this, with anybody. But you can say, what's a typical day like? Right? That's an easy question. What do you do in a day? Mm-hmm. What do you love about it? What do you not love about it? What does it take to be successful in that kind of career? And then you could say, well, what would you recommend to somebody who's thinking of making the transition? It's so easy to ask somebody in the role what they think, because they can give you the answers to the test. It's great. And then you can see, are those answers something you can live with? Because what if it's not? What if you are a working parent and they tell you, oh, the demands in this particular company are just over the top. Even the CEO works 80 hours a week. I mean, as much as you love the idea of being there, when you find out the reality, you recognize that it's not a match. So don't even waste your time job searching or going after, it would be great. You actually save yourself time in the long run.
Very, very true. I remember, I'm trying to remember the name of the guest, and I'm drawing a blank on it now, but he had a website geared towards students in particular who are very much like the job seeker who has to think this way. They go into a university, start thinking about a career without really knowing whether or not that career would be fulfilling. They just have a romantic notion that perhaps it might be if I have the degree and all that sort of stuff that students think about, and they don't really take the time to interview. And he created a website that basically was an interview with people who were in the job already. A few basic questions to describe what it's like to work in that particular career. It was a great idea. I think he launched it about 2-3 months ago. If it comes to mind, I'll put it in show notes. But when all is said and done, it's just so important to confirm that what you want is realistic given the other influences in your life.
Yeah, and then it matches what you want. That's when I was just interviewed by Money Magazine this week, and I was so excited to talk about this because basically they had basically done a study, and they found that employers, I'm sure you know this, Jeff, and you talk about this, right? Employers can't find enough good people, right? And of the people they have that are good, they can't retain them. Right? So this study confirms it, that employers are worried about losing their top talent. They're having a hard time finding them to begin with. And the article is about why you should negotiate to get what you want, right? But oftentimes people are like, oh no, I can't bring up in a job interview that I actually, need flexibility or that I, work better under those circumstances because I just have to do whatever they say so I get the job. And I'm looking at them like, are you serious? How are you going to do a job that's not to the style that you need? They want employers, when you are top talent and when you soul search, you figure out what your top talent is. You figure out where you are the cream of the crop. That's the whole point. Each and every one of us, it's here for a reason. And when you look at it that way, you see there is something you can do better than anyone else. And when you focus on that and you go to the employers who need that, it's a two-way conversation. It's so much more productive and sustainable because you're able to honestly say, I'd love to do those aspects of the job. These other aspects, though, that you have in this description, I'm not the best person for those. I understand maybe why you think you need to have them together, but might not, can't we talk about some other ways to get those aspects of the job done? And I have a client who's doing this in his current job right now. This is the other thing, right? So you're talking to the people who are currently working in your, the insider tip. You're like, hey, you're working right now, so keep it going through the next recession. And one of the ways to do that is look inside your own company. Right, he's doing a great job in his current job, but he's good at it. And it's a no-brainer almost. So he's talking to his boss about other areas that he has interest in, and his boss is encouraging him because they recognize he's top talent. The boss knows he needs to keep this person. The boss even took stuff off of this person's plate that he didn't want to do, so he could do these other projects. The boss actually said to him, "I know, and I see your talent, and you've got to do more of that. Absolutely. He's like, let me find other ways to get this other stuff done." And it's making this individual ecstatic, and it's making him even more valuable to the organization. It's just a win-win-win all the way around.
Systemically, there are a lot of reasons why these shortages of exceptional talent exist. I'm not going to go into it on this show, but what you're saying is absolutely true. Organizations are feeling the pinch based upon a variety of things that they're responsible for and the people in Washington are responsible for that have created labor shortages in many different fields. Too often people give up their own power. They give up their authority and their ability to negotiate to get what they want and just arrive subservient other than, I need to perform on this interview. So it's so important that, number one, you get a clear idea of what you want out of this. Number two, you do your homework to make sure it's congruent with what that next organization or the next field that you go into might be able to actually deliver. Because, again, if it's unrealistic, you'll never get what you want out of it. And then we start looking at the job search and how to go through that process in ways that are congruent. And I love what you said. People just believe that they have to arrive in that subservient position and take what's given to them without negotiation. It is so not true.
No, managers would tell you, I wish my employees would speak more, because the managers are feeling the pressure from the top level saying, give your people what they need because we need to keep them. And the manager's like, I don't know what that is. So a lot of managers, what keeps them up at night is trying to figure out what their people want. When you go to your manager and say, hey, I have some ideas about some things that can make my job even better. Can you give me your feedback on them? Can we talk about them? It's magical that your boss actually thanks you for helping him or her do their job.
And at review time, it's an ideal time to raise that as a subject, to talk with your manager as they're reviewing your performance and talk with you about some ways to make some progress, and some of the attaboys and attagirls that they're going to afford you, to talk about where you want to go on further. But here we're talking about job hunting. We're not talking about sustaining people. We want to help people land. So it's important in the course of interviewing that you take the time to make clear what it is you're hoping to achieve out of this and how to negotiate some of the rough edges.
I don't think too differently, Jeff, either. Like, what's interesting, I think what I'm trying to get people to see is that this is a mindset. This is a way of operating, right, that applies when you're job searching. It applies when you're in a job, right? This idea that you said it in your insider tip, you don't just sit idly there, right, dotting the I's and crossing the T's and think that you're, managing your career. When you actually are consistently, though, soul-searching and identifying what your needs are that make you happy, because those don't stay necessarily exactly the same throughout your life, because your life changes at different stages. Your needs and goals may change as well. So when you're soul-searching throughout your career, just making sure you're getting what you want and defining for yourself what the ideal is, and then you're researching ways to make it happen, whether it's in a job interview or in your current employer, it makes that I see job search to me as a conversation, right? Job searching is being comfortable and confident to be able to have a productive conversation with someone that's as much about what you want as about what they need, and then finding that match.
So true. And, at times I try to shift onto the tactics because I always want to make sure that my audience has something actionable. But you're doing it in a different way. And I just want to make sure everyone hears this loud and clear. What Maggie's talking about is completely actionable. I was trying to take it down one extra level. And, for you folks out there who are looking for work, if you need to go back to the beginning of this process and do the soul search, that may be the thing that's been standing between you and success. Go back and revisit that part. Take a little bit of time. There's no harm in this unless, your finances are such where you just can't afford to take that time. But otherwise, take some time. Reflect upon what's important to you in your life and in your career. Have you developed a life's mission or purpose and seen where it is you truly excel and enjoy what you're doing? And then from there, as she suggested, break it down into a series of concrete places where you can investigate to confirm that this is true, that these kind of careers and these kind of jobs and these kind of organizations can deliver what you want, and then start going into action because you'll be competing with other folks out there who are going to be trying to get those kind of jobs too.
One last point on that note, Jeff, about the competition. Do you mind if I make a comment?
Please, by all means.
So that's the other fear, right? People are afraid to do the kind of conversation I'm talking about because they're saying, but I just need to compete with everyone else. If I don't say yes to everything that job description someone else does, I won't get the job, and they will. And that may be the case, but again, do you really want the job that's not a fit for you? And two, the other component to this that, again, studies have shown and most people don't realize, hiring managers actually change the job description as they're interviewing. They change what they need and want in the job based on the candidates, because a manager's trying to get the job done. Someone leaves their team, or they need to add or expand or whatever, right? So they put down their best guess of what they need that role to be. As candidates come through, though, and talk to them about, well, I could bring this to your team. What's your goal? Oh, I could do this and I could do that, and we could reorganize this to that area. When you have a consultative conversation, right, when you're interviewing, that manager could very well change the job to match you, and that's what I've seen. That's how I've interviewed. After my experience in accounting, I said, wait a second, I can't just keep saying yes to a bunch of aspects on bullet points on a job description that aren't going to work for me. It's going to make me a failure, and it's going to make me miserable. So instead, what I've done on every job interview since is I make it a conversation. I say, well, what about this role is so important to you? What do you need the person in this role to do? And then we talk about how to get there. And I talk to them about the ways I can help them get there. And then they can decide, is that a fit for their team, or is there someone who's a better fit? And you know what? If they decide I'm not a better fit, it's a blessing. because it means there's something better for me out there. I need to get clear on where I'm a fit, because that's how you find it, right? You don't just marry the first person that comes along, and you don't just take the first job that comes along, right? Not if you want to be happy. So I encourage people that if you really do want to compete the way you say you do, you've got to make this a conversation where you focus the interview on what you can deliver and what's going to, and what you'll be happy to deliver for them and contributing to their goals, not just saying yes to everything that they want.
So that's today's show. I hope you found it helpful, and if you did, here are a few more ways to get more from me. First of all, visit my website, which is thebiggamehunter.us. I have more than 6,000 blog posts there that you can watch, listen to, or read that will help you find your next job. If you want the best of my advice, join JobSearchCoachingHQ.com, where I've curated information with a focus on interviewing. If you decide to take the lifetime membership at the site, it's $299 currently, but that's the price of a coaching session or an hour of coaching from me, and I'll be giving that to you if you join with a lifetime membership. Have a few questions? Contact me through the Magnify app for iOS or PrestoExperts.com, where you can call me. Schedule a specific time with me through chat on Magnify or by connecting with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/The Big Game Hunter. Once we're connected on LinkedIn, you can message me about coaching you, scheduling a time for Magnify or Presto Experts, speak with me about a resume or LinkedIn profile critique, help you with a salary negotiation or my trusted advisor services, and much, much more. Like you, I don't work for free. I do charge for what I do. You can take my classes on Skillshare and become a premium member using the link in the show notes and receive 2 months for free instead of just the one that the site offers. Skillshare offers thousands and thousands of courses, not just simply mine, on a host of different subjects that can help you in many different ways. Lastly, join my group on Facebook called Career Angles. It's free to the first 250 people who join and is focused on helping you do better at work. Information is shared daily, and we're attempting to build a supportive group there. Ask to join. I'm not letting recruiters in at this point. So I'll be back tomorrow with more, and in the meantime, I hope you have a great day. Be great!
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive #1, #2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're one step closer to becoming your parents. You'll proudly mow the lawn. Ask if anybody noticed you mowed the lawn. Tell people to stay off the lawn. Compare it to your neighbor's lawn. And complain about having to mow the lawn again. Good news is, it's easy to bundle home and auto through Progressive and save on your car insurance, which, of course, will go right into the lawn. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, Affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.